Just before dawn, somewhere west of Groom Lake, it passed low and slow over the sand, not violent, not loud. Just strange. A wind that didn't whistle didn't scatter the dust like it usually did. Instead, it dragged, like something being pulled behind it, awake in dry air. Like the desert was holding June 3rd, 1958. The son, Thomas, was 43. Army veteran, 2 kids, quiet man. He loved mechanical things, collected radio parts, and kept a little brown notebook full of hand-drawn topographies. He always brought 2 canteens, a notebook, a compass, and his transit-level steel legs, heavy as hell, built for stability in wind. He was reliable. Always reported in. Always came home. That day, he never made it back. The last anyone heard from him was a radio transmission at 7:41 a.m., routine check-in. Calm voice, elevation matches pre-burn grid. Moving east to quadrant 7. Signal good. Will advise. That was it. No mayday, no static, no signal degradation, just nothing. When they sent 2 bureau men out the next day, they found his truck exactly where it should have been. Locked, 1 canteen gone. Tire tracks leading east about 100 yards, then they vanished. Not buried under sand, not trampled. Just ended. Like the ground stopped recording what happened. They found the tripod too. Collapsed, still warm in the metal hinges, as if someone had just folded it down minutes earlier. No footprints, no drag marks, no signs of struggle, no Thomas. By the 3rd day, the military got involved unofficially. A black truck came up from Indian Springs Air Force Base. No plates. 2 men. No names. The local sheriff said they brought a Geiger counter and a wideband receiver. Stayed less than 2 hours, then left. No report was ever filed. That week, the desert heat climbed above 104 degrees. No one searched past day 6. The official record says, presumed disoriented. Likely succumbed to exposure. Remains unrecovered. But that was never the full story. Because one of the bureau men, the younger one, Daniel Mars, later told his niece something strange. She didn't come forward until 1994, long after he'd died. She said he came home shaken quiet and wouldn't touch the boots he'd worn that day. Left them in the garage. Claimed he'd stepped in something out there, not liquid, not soil, something that vibrated. He told her it was like the ground was breathing. Over the next few years, the story faded. It was too thin to become legend, too quiet to stir rumors. Just another missing man in a vast desert where people disappeared more often than they should. But the notebook, the little brown one Thomas carried everywhere, was never recovered. And neither was his wristwatch, an old Elgin his daughter said he never took off. They never found even a single bone. 64 years passed. In that time, the area changed names. Maps changed scale. The base expanded. The desert dried further. By 2022, the sand had shifted miles. Dunes reconfigured themselves. And with advanced topographic AI systems scanning historical elevation charts for anomalies, someone finally saw it. A young engineer at Caltech, name withheld from all reports, ran a retroactive comparison scan between 1950s aerial surveys and modern LiDAR. In one quadrant, long decommissioned, she noticed a discrepancy. A shallow depression recorded in 1955 was no longer present in 2022 satellite data. It hadn't eroded. It had disappeared. Covered, filled in, artificially. She marked the coordinates and pinged a partner at the University of Nevada, Reno. They'd been working on a side project digitizing Cold War infrastructure records. What they found changed the entire tone of the investigation. Under that same quadrant, in a declassified but undigitized logistics folder from 1961, was a single line item entryway 17B. Sealed June 12, 1958. 9 days after Thomas Ellsworth vanished. No other details. No listed personnel. No incident report. just sealed. In November 2022, with permission from the Nevada Bureau of Land Management, the pair launched a limited-site drone excavation using subsurface radar and ground-penetrating LiDAR. It didn't take long. Beneath 14 feet of shifted sand and compacted fill, the scans revealed a reinforced concrete structure, 22 by 11 feet rectangular, with a slight dome. No entry visible. No ventilation. One curious detail stood out, and the structure was oriented exactly 13.3 degrees northeast, aligned not with modern grid lines, but with the original 1950s geodetic benchmarks. That's what finally drew federal interest. Within 3 weeks, the site was cordoned off by unnamed contractors. Permits were suspended. The Caltech engineer was issued a gag order. The university partner was reassigned. All information vanished from open databases. Except one thing slipped through a test scan screenshot that showed the top corner of the buried structure. And on that surface, just barely visible beneath decades of silt and distortion, was something unmistakable. A number scratched into the concrete. 713E. The same quadrant Thomas reported moving toward. The one from his last transmission. No official agency has acknowledged the bunker. No excavation was publicly reported. But a former BLM survey technician who worked near that region until his retirement in 2003 told a reporter something strange about that stretch of land. He said, "It's the only place out there where compasses used to spin, but not like magnetism. It wasn't strong, it was scattered, like the readings came from different times." He laughed nervously when he said it, then added, "And you know the weirdest thing? There's no animal tracks out there. Nothing lives near that quadrant, not even ants. They never officially opened the bunker, at least not in any way the public would ever hear about." After the site was cordoned off, there were no helicopters, no heavy equipment deliveries, no field tents. Just a row of black trucks. No markings. Dustless. As if they hadn't driven, but appeared. Satellite imagery. What little was accessible showed minor shifts in terrain that suggested underground drilling, not surface excavation. A precise core removal. Something done by people who knew exactly where to go and exactly what not to disturb. Then the trucks left. The sand was replaced, and the silence resumed. But not for long. In late February 2023, an anonymous file appeared on a locked server used by independent archivists in Nevada, mostly historians, ex-cartographers, and Cold War infrastructure enthusiasts. The file was audio. 1 minute and 12 seconds. Heavily degraded. No metadata. No header tags. File name Final Wrecker. It spread quietly at first, just among the fringe researchers. But then a few listeners noticed something strange, audio engineers specifically. They reported frequency patterns in the background hum that didn't match any analog tape from the 1950s or 60s. It wasn't magnetic hiss. It wasn't environmental noise. It was rhythmic, intermittent, structured. Like a machine trying to mimic decay. Then someone enhanced the first 10 seconds, and it changed everything. Because under the static right before the voice begins, there's a faint clicking sound. Not mechanical. Organic, like teeth. Chattering. The voice itself begins abruptly, almost mid-sentence. Not north. I repeat, not north. Entrance compromised. Light distortion increasing. Wind inside. Repeating for record quadrant 713, echo breached. Immediate recall recommended. Then a long pause. Wind. Not natural wind, it moves too steadily. It doesn't ebb, it pushes. Then one last phrase, almost whispered, as if closer to the microphone. Tell them not to dig. It's not buried, it's waiting. The tape ends there. No scream, no collapse. Just the clicking again. Closer now. then silence. Within days, the file vanished from all major forums. Archive threads were locked. Even mentions in Reddit and Discord were wiped by moderators no one could identify. Most people assumed it was a hoax audio drama creepypasta AI generated. But two things kept it alive in closed circles. First, the voice on the tape, when run through legacy voice pattern analysis, returned a 37% match to Thomas Ellsworth's known speaking cadence based on a surviving 1957 training reel. Second, a minor slip by a National Archives employee. A volunteer cataloger from Spokane helping digitize the Department of Interior's 1958 survey reels reported that one of the boxes labeled Ellsworth Thomas HNV Field Ops had been reclassified and removed from the archive before he could process it. The listed reason: security restriction 713EA. After that, people started looking backward again. People who'd grown up near Tonopah, old rangers, desert men who never trusted the government. One in particular came forward, a man named Carl Finley, now 81. Retired border pilot, used to fly low-altitude recon in the early 60s. He said he remembered the Ellsworth story not from the news, but from something a radar tech told him in a bar near Beatty. Said there were echoes in the ground out there. Places where radar bounced weird. Not up, not down, just around, looped, like the signal was caught in a room that shouldn't be there. Carl said, "You ever yell into a canyon and hear your own voice come back before you shouted? That's what it sounded like out there." Another detail came from a mining foreman, retired, who'd once been assigned to exploratory blasting less than 5 miles from the 7-3E quadrant. This was 1969. They'd bored down into the clay, looking for tungsten. Got down about 18 feet before the drill hit something metallic. Not rock, not mineral, metal. They pulled up the tip and found a shard lodged in it, no larger than a thumbnail. Dark alloy. Light as plastic but cold to the touch. The foreman sent it up to the base. The next day, their entire site was shut down. He said it wasn't the metal that scared him. It was the drill. After they pulled it up, it kept spinning. Not the motor, the bit itself. He said, "We unhooked the whole line, set it on the ground, and it just kept turning real slow, like it was winding backwards." By April 2023, the area had been redesignated. The public maps showed a weather monitoring installation. The road leading in had been erased from GPS. Satellite views were blurred. What little remained on physical maps was marked as restricted and chemically unstable, citing radon, even though no samples ever confirmed it. But the people who still cared, the families of the missing amateur researchers and fringe historians, kept digging. Not in the ground, in the paper. Old manifests, shipping logs, radio maintenance reports. And that's when someone found it. A logbook. Misfiled under Environmental Compliance, 1959. Inside it was a fuel order, bulk drums flown into a now-defunct strip near Groom Lake. But the delivery wasn't to any known military base. It was addressed to Hold Site Echo Sub-Facility 7. And in the margin, handwritten in faint pencil, was a single word: seeping. What kind of place gets a name like that? What kind of place do men go into and never come back? It was almost a full year before someone admitted they'd seen inside. Not publicly, not in a court of law or on a microphone, but in a voice message distorted late at night, left on a private server used by independent archivists. The same circle where the audio file first leaked. The message was just 48 seconds long. A woman's voice, older, tired. She didn't say her name. She didn't give a title. She didn't need to. Because her voice shook the moment she said the words, "I went inside. Hold Site Echo." The voice message was traced to a secure line in Albuquerque registered to a former technician who'd worked with the Sandia National Labs in the 1980s. But this wasn't about weapons or research. It was about a door. Her message was rough. Some of the tape was warped. But the story what came through was clear enough to follow. She said the entrance wasn't really sealed from above. It was sealed from the inside. The dig in 2022 didn't open anything. It exposed something that had already been waiting. Something buried deliberately, not to preserve it, but to forget it. She said the interior was bone dry. No rot, no mildew. The air was still. The lights worked, wired to a backup generator that had long since shut down. But something had reconnected the system to a thermal loop deep in the surrounding rock. She said the moment the door opened, it was like stepping into a photograph. Everything frozen in time. A table. A reel-to-reel player. 3 chairs, 2 upright. 1 toppled. No dust, and on the wall marked in dark chalk, Q713 was never a coordinate. It's a threshold. According to her account, there was no tunnel beyond the room. No stairwell, no exit. Just a concrete shell. And a steel hatch in the floor welded shut. Seamless, no hinge, no latch, no handle. Like someone had poured the steel over it, trying to keep something in. On the wall beside it, a black smudge, like a handprint, but too long, too narrow. She said she reached down and touched the weld line. It was warm. Her final words. There's something beneath that floor. It doesn't sleep. It doesn't rot. I think it's listening. She was never heard from again. 2 weeks after the message surfaced, her house was cleared out. No eviction, no signs of travel, just gone. Neighbors reported men in desert camouflage removing boxes at night. The house was sold within 30 days, all records sealed. After that, the story became folklore again. The online forums split. Some called it a Cold War hallucination. Others insisted it was a military experiment gone wrong. But the ones who lingered in the corners, who pulled at threads, no one else noticed. They found something far worse. A name. Buried in an annex of Department of Energy testing sites, a facility that never appeared on civilian rolls. Sublevel Echo 7, Psychological Containment Trial, 1957-58. No address, no staff. Just a notation project silhouette. Objective isolation response in non-temporal zones. That's when people started asking, what was Ellsworth really surveying? Not elevations, not fault lines. Thresholds. Places where time, space, or memory itself bends ever so slightly under the weight of something we weren't meant to find. And the people who get too close, they don't vanish. Not exactly. They fade. The final confirmation came from the most unexpected place, a forgotten box of photographs. Discovered in a university storage unit in Reno, part of a decades-old donation from a retired geologist's estate. The box was mislabeled Mojave Water Surveys, 1956. But inside were dozens of black and white photos, topographic overlays, notations in pencil, all matching terrain west of Tonopah. And one image slightly out of focus, showing a figure kneeling in front of a metal hatch. Not a modern one, not military. Older, hand-cut, welded seams glowing faintly white like frost or heat. The back of the photo was labeled in block letters Q713E. 6-158. Don't open. Thomas Ellsworth vanished on June 3rd. This photo was taken 2 days before. Why didn't he report the hatch? Why did he move deeper into the quadrant? What happened between his last message and the last time he was seen? Some theorize he did report it, and that's what triggered the shutdown. That's what brought the black trucks. That's why the file was sealed. Others say he opened it, that he looked inside. And what he saw him back. There's a word that shows up repeatedly in the notes around sub-facility Echo 7. It's not a military code, not a scientific term. It's handwritten and circled 3 times in different colors of ink. The word is bleed. No explanation, no context. But maybe, just maybe, it's not blood they meant. Maybe it's time, memory, self, bleeding into something else, something watching us from underneath. And still, no one will answer a single question. No agency claims the site, no scientist has been allowed back, no family member ever got closure. Thomas Ellsworth's body was never found, his notebook never recovered, his name forgotten in every official channel. Except one. On a cracked concrete wall, deep beneath the Nevada desert, where the welds still glow faintly warm, where the wind moves, but nothing breathes, where silence isn't quiet. It's listening. It should have ended there. The photo, the audio, the sealed floor and the weld that stayed warm. But stories like this don't stay buried. Not fully, not forever. Because in 2024, someone opened it. Not officially, not with permits, not with a team. Just one man. His name was Samuel Renshaw, age 51. Former structural engineer for DARPA. He left the agency quietly in 2016 after a mental health leave. Spent his final years documenting Cold War installations on an obscure blog called Echo Down. Most of it was forgettable cracked bunkers, air shafts, collapsed tunnels, the detritus of abandoned programs. But in early 2024, Renshaw posted something different. A single-line entry, no photo, no location, just this weld isn't real. There's something soft behind it. Metal isn't supposed to breathe. That was his final post. He never logged in again. 3 months later, a ranger at the Nevada border station 17 miles from Quadrant 713E reported something strange. A man walking barefoot down the access trail. Coat torn, hands bleeding, eyes fixed dead ahead. Said nothing. Didn't respond to questions. Didn't blink. They held him in a medical unit for 36 hours before federal personnel arrived. When they took his prints, they froze. The man matched Samuel Renshaw, but there was a problem. Renshaw was already dead. Confirmed via dental record, body cremated. Death certificate filed July 2023. The man they found was identical down to the scar on his collarbone, but older, slightly thinner, eyes clouded like he hadn't seen daylight in years. They ran DNA, 97% match. The report was stamped anomalous result. Do not disclose. Whatever he saw beneath that weld, it rewrote something. Maybe not time, maybe something deeper, structure, foundation, as if identity itself could fracture. 2 weeks later, a small package arrived at the home of an independent AI researcher in Santa Fe. No return address, no message, just a plastic drive. Encoded. Inside motion reconstruction data. Extremely advanced. Military-grade software capable of re-simulating physical movement based on partial environmental data dust displacements, heat signatures, compression traces in soil. The file was named Ellsworth Last Sequence. It took the AI 2 days to unpack, and when it did, it rendered something impossible. A 41-second visual sequence time-stamped June 3, 1958. No video, just frame-by-frame spatial interpretation. Ellsworth stands in the hatch room. Alone. The real player is running. His tripod is folded. His notebook lies open on the floor. Then he freezes, turns, tilts his head slightly like listening to something behind the wall. But there's no sound. Only pause. Like something pausing him. He moves toward the hatch, hesitates, then bends, placing his palm against the weld line. In the frame, no movement, no breach, no fracture. But the AI flagged something anyway. Frame 32 of 41. In that moment, less than a second, Ellsworth's spine compresses unnaturally. Shoulders drop, knees fold, not like collapse, like gravity. Shifted, then a blur, not motion blur, Not compression artifact, a shape. Behind him, human height, indistinct, reflected nowhere. It doesn't touch him. It simply stands behind him. Then frame 33, he's gone. No fall, no exit, just gone. The AI labeled it subject anomalously discontinued, environment persisting. That same week, a journalist named Ray Follins, freelance, known for borderland investigative work, received a manila envelope. No note, no address. Inside a page. Torn. Lined paper. Faint, water-damaged black smudges along the edges. But still legible. The handwriting matched a confirmed sample from Ellsworth's 1957 field reports. It read, "I was wrong about the ground. It doesn't sink. It listens. Everything we build is a mirror to what's underneath. The welds don't hold. They only delay." I heard myself before I spoke. I watched the real play before I turned it on. I think I left already. I think I'm still here. If this page is ever found, don't follow. Don't break the seal. Don't answer the knock. T.E. Some say it's fake, too poetic, too convenient. But two forensic linguists working separately compared the handwriting ink degradation and language structure. Both concluded extremely high probability of authenticity. 1950s composition, moderate panic present in syntax. So that's where it stands. A man disappears in 1958. Decades pass, something sealed, not forgotten, just ignored, until technology obsession and chance reopen the wound. Inside a room with no dust, a tape that never degrades, a weld that never cools, and a silence that presses back. The final detail, the one no one can explain, was found by a soil analyst in early 2025. She was working a completely unrelated project, collecting deep-core dust samples from test sites west of Groom Lake. When her analysis came back, one of the cores contained non-native organic material. She ran a test on the sample's isotopic signature. The protein traces dated not from 1958, but from 2071, a year that hasn't happened yet. The lab shut down, her equipment seized. No follow-up. But before they took her samples, she published a private note. Just 5 words. Nothing else. No warning, no theory. Only this, they're not from the past. And the desert remains still. The door is closed again. But somewhere beneath the sand, beneath the weld, beneath the concrete, the temperature remains 4.7 degrees above ambient. Always. Like something inside is exhaling. Slowly. Waiting. Listening. And out there in the wind that doesn't blow in the quadrant with no birds, where compasses shiver and drills unwind, there is a silence that isn't silence. A memory waiting to wake. And if you ever find yourself out past the line near the place the maps forgot, you'll know you're close when you stop hearing your own footsteps. Because something else is walking behind you. And it was always going to.